Perfect. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Yeah, if you're not familiar with JASCI or myself, I'm James Gibson. I'm one of the solutions account managers here at JASCI. We also have Joe Rist online. Joe, would you like to make an introduction here?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Joe Rist. I'm the Director of Solution Sales at JASCI, and I'll be guiding us through a webinar today. We've done several in the last several weeks, and we have plenty more planned after this. So feel free to keep tuning in.
So today we're going to be demonstrating, our audits, lot tracking, and inventory control logic within the platform, right? Going over our product attributes, receiving approval, and our audit model as well. Joe's going to be jumping into the platform here. So if there's any questions throughout, I'll be monitoring the chat, right? So just feel free to put them in there, and we can dive right into the platform. Okay, Joe.
Yep. I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right. Is that showing?
Yep, I can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about, as we showed on the slide just there, inventory control, some things about product attributes. We previously had a few webinars on the inbound process, and one of the final few things I wanted to show you there was also about our receiving approval, and then also about our audit model, which is often used on the inbound side to ask questions, making sure that you're receiving things properly, whether it's about the product or about the shipment that arrived. And then we're also going to talk about our lot tracker because that's very important. Now, next week, we're going to be diving further into inventory management. There's actually a lot that we have under this inventory tab. Today, we're going to be focusing in on the lot tracker and some other things that I had just mentioned, but we have all these other flows and screens. We're going to be diving into those in the inventory management webinar, which I believe will be in 2 weeks because next week we're taking a quick break for the holidays. Um, so let's go ahead and go into our product attributes. That's one of the first things I'd like to cover because a lot of the product attributes are going to have, a lot of interactions with your inventory control. And, we'll show an inventory lookup to show you where all those product attributes are actually going to show once you've received the inventory. And we're also going to see an example of that during the receiving flow that we're showing the audit model. You'll also see some of those product attributes. So let's go into one of our setup screens called the product maintenance. Now, the product maintenance is really a reflection of our product table. The products are typically fed into JASCI through an API, but you have multiple ways that you can add products to JASCI, whether you're creating them from the front end here, communicating them through that API, and we also have a data load program where you can load a whole bunch of products at once. Since we're going to talk about some of the product attributes, I'm just going to plug in a SKU that I have in my system and search that. So it brings us to the page to show us these product attributes. Now, in our product attributes, we're going to have a product. We also have a field called quality. So the quality can also refer to the quality of the product. Maybe it's a lower grade, or maybe it's a refurbished item. This quality field is going to refer to exactly what that is, a variation of the SKU itself. Now, depending on what your requirement is, if you think you might need to use this quality field, we'll actually be able to review that with you. And there's a lot of other product attributes we have that might actually take control of what you're thinking about when it comes to the quality field. And we'll talk about that as we go through this page. We also have the descriptions. So JASCI can show the description short. We can also show a longer version of the description, which is 50 characters. And you'll be able to, if you want to show the long description, maybe there's, some unique things about the product that is relevant to the warehouse workers, then you might want the description long. On this product, I just have them matching the same thing because it's, as you can see, it's a basic product name. Now we have a whole bunch of different codes here. Maybe you want to group products together for our apparel customers. We also have style, size, and color if that's a way that you want to categorize your products as well for other types of behaviors in the system or ways that you can look up groups of products that you have. We also have product subgroup code, which would be like a group within the group. You can have your country of origin, or if it's you have certain harmonized tariff codes, or maybe you have handling codes or hazmat. Maybe it's a product where you're not going to ultimately pack it into a box. It's going to ship as is. If it's maybe already in what it ships out in while it's on the shelf. We also have some fields here, like is it a lot controlled item? So if we mark that as yes, during our workflows that are going to be asking a user to enter or confirm a lot, it's going to know that based on the product that you've scanned in that workflow, if it's lot controlled or not. The same thing comes with the number of days to expiration. Now, you're going to set products, if they are an expiry product, you're going to set them to be FIFO, which is first to expire, first out. We also have other date sequences. Maybe it's not a expiry controlled product, but you still want to do FIFO. And then there's some rare cases where you might want to do LIFO. And then we've also had customers where it's based on the manufacturing date more so than the expiration date, or the time that it was received. Now, when it comes to number of days to expiration, we actually have two fields for this. This is to basically say, what is an allowable range of days to where you would receive that product in. Let's say it's about to expire in 3 days. Maybe you want to block the ability to receive that if you set this value to 3. Um, if we scroll down a little bit here, we can also see the number of ship days to expiration. So this is going to look at, how soon it's going to be expiring and seeing if we're allowed to ship that out or not. Maybe stuff that's going to expire tomorrow, you don't want to ship out because it's going to expire on the way to the destination. We also have quarantine days if you want to be able to quarantine the product for a certain amount of days before you have it available for inventory. You could have seasonality codes. We can also say that a product might require a cube, and this is where maybe, the first time that you're receiving an item in, you want to make sure that you capture those dimensions properly, or maybe it's every time. But a lot of times your first time receiving a product into the warehouse, you'll get the true dimensions as opposed to the dimensional data that was listed from an external source. Um, so this product maintenance, as you can see, we have all sorts of different attributes to the products that are going to relate to how it behaves within the system, and then also what users are prompted with while they're performing these different flows, like receiving and picking and so forth, cycle counting, etc. We also have picture required. So if you have a certain SKU where it's going to require that we capture an image of that product and store it to the work, then we can mark that as yes. We also have a few customers that are doing RFID. So if it's an RFID controlled product and you want it to behave with our workflows, that way, then you can mark this as a yes as well. We also have product image fields. So if you want to associate an image of the product to show up on mobile devices and various full screens for like inventory lookups and stuff, it's just a visual aid to, understand more than just the name of the SKU itself, but also what it should look like or what it does look like. You can put product images in here. We also have product ABC codes, so you can declare the velocity of a product. We can also overwrite the velocity of the product based on data that's flowing through with a scheduled job that we have that can go out and analyze, what's been picked, what's been ordered the most frequently, and we can go ahead and adjust those ABC values if you'd like. So there's all sorts of things. One of my favorite is going to be your product slotting category. We talked about this in our previous webinar for slotting, where you can establish specific categories for your locations and for your products. So it knows as we're receiving what areas of the warehouse, what rows, aisles, etc., we typically want to slot that category of products. Maybe you keep, your certain types of electronics together, or maybe it's a certain type of produce that is going to be, treated the same way as far as the storage conditions, and maybe they're often ordered together, so you'd like to store them near each other. You can categorize them together and then apply those categories to the locations. If anyone hasn't seen that slotting webinar, I highly recommend checking it out. We also have these inventory control types. Now, the reason we have 10 of these different inventory control types is because we have what's called an inventory control field. And since we have so many different industries that JASCI has features for, a lot of times there will be very specific requirements where you need to track, maybe it's a certain a vendor code or a certain attribute about a product that we don't have in one of our pre-existing categories, we can choose to map that to one of these inventory control fields. And then we can also consider these inventory control fields for further processes, like if we need to consider it for allocation and look at, inventory control field 3 and make sure that we have a certain value in that field if we're going to allocate it for, say, a certain customer. So these inventory control fields are interchangeable, and we have 10 of them because you may need to use several of them if you've got a very complex environment. We also have the descriptions for those down here, so you can put what an actual description of that inventory control field should be. Um, and we have, a whole bunch more. We have customers that work with batteries and chemicals and such. So we have so many fields that are tied to our product table that are really attributes about the product and how it behaves through JASCI. So I wanted to show this screen first because as we go into an inventory lookup, you're going to see some of these things come into play, like the expiration date, the lot, the inventory control fields. So let's go ahead and do that now. If you have any questions on our product tables, the product interface, the product maintenance, where you can come in here and manipulate, please let us know. And one final thing about the product maintenance and product tables is we also have the dimensional data there for the product. This is where you can declare all the various barcodes that you might encounter. Maybe the supplier of that SKU doesn't always give you a barcode that represents how you store that SKU or product in the system. So you want to allow for an additional number or barcode that could be scanned and tie it back to this product. You could also declare multiple units of measures. So if we're receiving something by pallets or cases or eaches, we're going to know in the system what the dimensional data of each of those unit of measure codes is, and be able to calculate the cube dimensions and the individual dimensions that are needed for things like slotting, packing, building a pallet. This is where we're referencing that dimensional data from. It's called our product variables. So let's go ahead and see what this actually looks like in the system. Now, when you're going to look up inventory in JASCI, and we're going to dive into this a lot more on the next webinar that we do, but when you're looking up inventory in JASCI, there's multiple ways to get to it. We have pre-made screens where you can plug in either a location and see what inventory is there, or we can plug in a product and see which locations have that inventory. We have inventory levels, which is more of a report that just shows you all of our inventory levels. And the same concept for transactions. You can see every transaction that's occurred, what that transaction change of quantity was, the reference codes and reason codes. We're going to dive into these more. We also have an expired product lookup. So if you have certain products that are, and you want to make sure that you're monitoring inventory that's about to expire or is getting close to it, we have an expired product lookup that'll actually show you. It'll highlight certain inventory records red or yellow based on how close to expiration they are and helps inventory control team take action on removing that expired product. Now, JASCI is going to make sure that we don't allocate a product that's either expired or going to expire within that window we just talked about. But we have various lookups that are like pre-made screens, and I'm going to go into one for lookup inventory by product first. But just keep in mind, if you are wanting to look up inventory within JASCI, there's other ways to do this as well. I would say one of the most favorite, and especially over the last 2 years or so, a lot of people have been going towards our reporting tool, where you can create very tailored inventory reports for yourself that show you the columns and the values that are most meaningful for your company. And we're going to do a full webinar on the reporting tool and all the pre-made reports that we have, all of the actions that you can take within the reporting tool, how you can build your own reports. So that's going to be a great webinar. I highly recommend everybody tune into that one. Let's go ahead and enter one of our SKUs here. If we search our SKU, and we could put a product, we could put part of the description, part of the product ID. If we want to search by a certain license plate number or even a serial code, we could do that. So let's just go ahead and search our product 0018, which I use all the time. And we can actually see a product image up there as well. We can see this is a total inventory lookup. So as we plugged in that SKU, it's going to tell us by area how much we have in each area. And in JASCI, we like to give you a really true view of your inventory. And we're going to highlight this deeper on the next webinar, but we'll show you how much is physically there, how much is inbound, meaning it's a replenishment or a put away that's waiting to occur. We'll tell you how much is outbound, which could be a replenishment pick that's going to happen, or it could be an order that's going to be picked from that location. And then available, which is going to be what's available for allocation. So if we go into our bulk area, for example, and look at our bulk locations that have this SKU, you can see I store the SKU all over my warehouse because I'm constantly using it in demonstrations. And we can see how much is available. And we could see if there's any hold codes. You could program your own hold codes in here. You could see if there's a location check, which means something occurred at that location that wasn't typical. And we want to make sure that someone on the inventory team goes and corrects that. Location checks and these inventory hold codes will be going into that on the next webinar. We can also see if there's a license plate number stored with that inventory. So license plate numbers in JASCI can be tied to work, but also you can retain an LPN for a particular inventory record and then make sure that someone is scanning that inventory's license plate if they're going to be doing a workflow that involves it, like picking. Now you'll see this inventory button as well. This inventory button, this is going to bring us to another lookup where we could see if we have these locations marked as pick clean or not. And also we have some additional buttons where we can drill down into that particular location and we can see more information about it. One of my favorites is the pending activity button. So if we look at the pending activity here, we could see that there's actually a pending letdown that's going to occur from this location. So that's something we want to be mindful of. If we were looking at maybe potentially moving that inventory record, it's not going to let us because we have the pending activity. And this is a great way to have visibility into that exact work. If we wanted to open up this work, we could go to this task by clicking this arrow, and that's going to bring us right to this letdown that's going to occur. By the way, a letdown in JASCI is a replenishment. We have multiple types of replenishments that we'll eventually go into on a webinar. One of them is called a letdown. And a letdown is typically when you have the same person that's picking that bulk inventory is this in the same workflow, you're going and you're putting it into its end location or its to location, rather than somebody else performing the put away portion of it. We also have pick restock, where one person's picking those replenishment picks, and then another person with a different flow is performing the putaways for them. That's typically used when you have picking occurring with a certain type of equipment where you don't want that same truck going into the aisles where you're replenishing to. So we could see that that specific location has some inventory activity against it. We can also click the More button, and this is going to show us our lot. If we're stored in LPN by it, we could see the date control. We could see any serial codes associated. We could see any of those inventory control fields that I had mentioned prior. So we have a lot of serial fields. I forgot to mention that in the product attributes page. We have a lot of electronics customers where maybe they need to track multiple serial codes that are associated with different components of the product. Same thing with like auto parts and aircraft parts as well. Those are a lot of times going to have multiple serials that need to be tracked. So we have several serial code fields as well. But these inventory control fields, you would be able to set these up to be used with, say you're receiving something and you need to track a particular value about that inventory record. We have 10 different fields that we could populate that value to. So that's a little bit on the inventory lookup. We have a whole range of ways that you can look up inventory and pre-made reports and pre-made screens. I just wanted to give you an example of looking up one within JASCI to show you where those product attributes are visible. We also have other buttons here that you could look up like details about that location to see, how that location is set up, the size of it, the categories, and maybe you notice something about that physical location in the system that you wanted to change. All right, so next we're going to talk a little bit about some of the QC and approval processes for inbound inventory. Now we did a few webinars recently on the receiving process and slotting and put away, but I wanted to show one more feature that I hadn't highlighted, which is our ASN or PO receiving. So we have screens and we have approval screens for a lot of different things in JASCI, whether it's returns, purchase orders, ASNs, inbound shipments, even cycle counts. If you wanted to have an approval before a cycle count officially impacts your inventory levels. So we're going to go into this ASN receiving approval. And here's where we can search by the ASN or the purchase order or the receiving ID, which would be like that inbound shipment number if it was a container with several orders on it. So let's just go ahead and plug in an ASN from one of the webinars. I think I had used this recently in a webinar. And if we search this ASN, it's then going to show us, hey, you've got here's how much was received on all those lines, and then we can choose to approve. Now, if we're approving it, we can declare the number of pallets, and then it's going to say, hey, just double check and make sure that you're approving this, and we can hit OK. Now, this approval screen can also look at if we have open putaways that exist for that ASN or for that purchase order, and it can tell the user, hey, you can't approve this yet because you have pending putaways. Now, what this approval is actually doing is declaring when we want to send our receipt confirmations up to the host system. Now, some of our customers will just do that as soon as they've received the product or as soon as they've put away the product. But some of our customers want this approval screen for either a supervisor or the inbound or inventory control team to make sure that everything is officially how it's supposed to be before we go tell the host system, which is typically an ERP, maybe it's SAP, maybe it's NetSuite, etc. Before we send that receiving confirmation, you would maybe put in this step for an approval. So that's a little bit on our approval process. Next, I wanted to show the audit model. So if we come in here into our audit model maintenance, audit models are a series of questions that you can craft that will then ask the user on the mobile device to respond to those questions, and then actions based on those responses can happen. And you can also have these audit models basically decide to increase the frequency of asking based on if there were any failures or anything that wasn't expected to be entered. We could say, hey, we need to start. If you set it by vendor, for example, we need to start auditing the receipts against this vendor more frequently. Or you can just set it up to occur every single time, or you can have it trigger based on a product. There's all sorts of ways that you can trigger these audit questions to occur, and you can create all different what we call models or sets of questions based on the scenario that you want. Maybe you have certain types of products where you ask different sets of questions, or maybe you have different workflows where you have different sets of questions. So we're going to go into edit and just look at one. For example, this is the PO audit. So I have 5 questions here. And we're going to see these questions take place on the screen, which we're going to go to in just a moment. You can also set different error codes and severity levels. If you want, the severity levels are going to look at how frequently we perform this audit and possibly increase the frequency or decrease the frequency based on the responses that occurred. And then we also have reports that'll show you all of the information about each audit that was performed. So you have that history of the audit, what work it was tied to, what products it looked at, etc. So this is your area where you can add or edit your questions and the sequence that it occurs. Now we're going to go into our mobile device that's on the screen here and just go into an example of receiving so we could see these audit model questions. So you remember from our receiving webinar, a workbench is going to be us linking into a mobile printer or desktop printer that we want our put away labels to print out of. So I'll scan into that workbench. Then we're going to enter in a a purchase order. So I have one for the webinar called PO Webinar 01. And we're going to scan, and that's going to say, all right, let's go ahead and receive against this product. Now, I know I have this SKU on there. I'm not going to go in to show you the purchase order in the system. I already know what SKU I have on there. So to save a little bit of time, I'll just go ahead and enter it. And then also, if you remember from our receiving webinar, we also have these buttons down below that you can hit to go onto a new purchase order, or maybe we observed damage and we want to capture an image of that damage and move it to a certain location rather than slotting it. We can also set up that camera to occur whenever you'd like to within the workflows. So we're going to scan our product, and this is a lot controlled product, so it's going to ask us to enter our lot. It's also an expiry controlled product, so we're going to confirm uh, the um, the expiration date. So I'll just say that this is going to expire on Christmas, as just an example. That's coming up pretty soon in 6 days. I don't think I have any kind of a window that's going to block me from this on this SKU. So let's go ahead and enter that. And then you're going to see information now. Um, our workflows really they change company to company of what you want displayed for the user. For example, I have as much information as possible here. It's going to show me my lot, my expiration date, my product, the purchase order we're receiving against, and even an image of the product as well. So I know what it's supposed to look like. Maybe I'm new to the company and I don't know what all these SKUs look like. And, I see tomatoes here, but let's say I meant to be receiving coconuts. Well, I know that these aren't coconuts. So, I have a little bit of a clue there that I probably scanned the wrong barcode somewhere. Now, down below, we're going to see our questions that are part of that audit model that we have associated with this flow or with this SKU. So it's going to bring us through our questions, and we can choose if we want to do a pass fail. If you have questions where they need to input a certain value, like the temperature or like a quality of the product, or a grade of the product, and all sorts of things where it's going to be value based, we'll do those as executions where you're prompted to enter something. But if it's a question that's going to be yes or no, this can be easily done in our audit model maintenance. So we could say, hey, does this inventory have an odor? Is there any signs of mold or decay? Are there any signs of pests? Does this item have, this is tomato, so we're going to make sure that it's nice and firm and not soft, rotten tomatoes. There's a different quality aspects of it you're able to plug into this audit model and have it really unique to your business processes. So we'll say that everything in this passed. If we chose that anything failed, we can have that influence if we're going to allow this inventory to go into inventory or not. We'll use our slotting to figure out if it needs to go to like a damage or inspection area, or maybe it's just going to be slotted so someone can approve for this to be put away. Now down here, it's brought us to do our receiving unit of measure and quantity. So I'm going to click into here. And by the way, I'm simulating this mobile device on Chrome, but JASCI will be able to flex the workflow to any size device that you want to work on, whether it's a mobile device, a phone, a tablet, a desktop. You could do these on desktop. So you'll have different amounts of real estate. So that's something to consider with how much information you want showing up above. And obviously, as you can see here, we have the ability to scroll if you do want to give a lot of information. So we're going to go ahead and hit receive, and that's our typical receiving process. So it's going to slot, make sure that pallet's going to go somewhere. And now we're ready to go perform a put away, which we showed in the previous webinars. So that's a little bit on our audit model maintenance. I wanted to show an example of how it's set up and then also an example of how it looks in the workflow. Now we have one last topic I wanted to cover on the webinar today, which is our lot tracking. So we saw that we received a lot controlled item there, and that's going to show an inventory as we did an inventory lookup before. We were able to see the lot of the inventory. But we also have a tool built in for customers that are working with a lot of lots and expirations, and that's our lot tracker. So we have the lot tracker and then we have the lot controls alongside of it. Now, the lot tracker, this is where you can plug in a particular lot or a particular product or part of the descriptions, part of the lots, or you could just view all open lots. I'm going to plug in one of our products here that I'm always using, the 0018. And then we can see everything that I've done. I've done a lot of demos where we have lots and stuff. So you can see a lot of records here, 26 different records for this product. So we're going to go to just one of these lots as an example. I'm going to select this one. And in here we can view all of the, oh, sorry, went back by accident. And here we can view information about that lot, if there's a hold on it or not. A last activity if we want to apply a reason code to the lot hold, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But what I really want to focus in on right here is we could see which locations have this product and lot and expiration combination. And then we can also see shipment history, which is vital for if you have like a product recall for a certain lot. We can easily track this down, whether it's through our reporting tool or this screen right here, the lot tracker. And we can see we only have one shipped for this. We can see exactly who got it and when. We could see the ship date, the carrier it went on, the customer ID. We have something called customer company, as well as customer name. These are all fields tied to our customer table, so we could retain a lot of information about customers. And one more thing on customers is you can choose by customer what the allowable window for expiration is. So if you have a certain customer like a dollar store or something that's willing to get a little bit closer to the expiration for a better price, you can set them to have a certain percentage of the allowable window. So maybe you want to give them like 100% as close as possible. But maybe you have someone overseas or someone far away or someone that just wants to have the highest possible quality and furthest to expiration, then you could set that as well by customer. So here we can see the shipment history, and we can even go into this work detail and see more information about it. And we have a button called Ship Detail, which will give you a lot of that shipping information. And then also in our ship detail, you're able to reprint the shipping labels in the event that you lost one of the labels or it didn't print properly or something. You can come in here and just simply hit reprint ship labels. Um, Now, that was the lot tracker. I also mentioned the lot controls. And yeah, as you can see up here, we have workflows like change lot or update lot. Not all of our customers like to use that workflow, but some have wanted to in the event that something changed about the product and therefore they need to change something about the lot associated with the product. But let's go into the lot controls maintenance briefly. And here's where we can plug in a particular lot, and you can search that lot or search the product. So we're going to do a search, and then it's just an example. We'll go into edit one of these. And in our lot controls, here's where you can have a lot more action. Now, on the previous screen, we could have applied a lot hold pretty easily, but in here you can also select the lot hold and also list a reason code. You have full control over what reason codes that you want allowable. You could also put, a date on hold that you want this to be on hold until. Um, you can put, I'm sorry, a date that you've put it on hold, but you can also put an available date. So when you want that hold to be removed, you can also put like country of origin or anything about the manufacturing or about the supplier in here as well, if you'd like to. So that's our lot controls. It's just a little bit more detail about that lot and a little bit more capabilities around like why you put the lot hold and to give someone information. You could also save notes about it as well. So that rounds up what we wanted to show today about inventory control, product attributes, on the receiving side, if you're going to be doing approvals or audits to the inbound inventory that you have, and then also about our lot tracker. Now, on our next webinar, we're going to go more into the inventory management, like the different inventory flows we have, inventory adjustments, inventory moves, cycle counts, and the controls behind them. So we highly recommend joining us for that webinar. We'll also talk about the inventory reports too, and should be a lot to look forward to there. Now we do have the holidays coming up, so I think we'll have a slight break before our next webinar. So I'll let James kind of take the floor here to describe that. And since the holidays are coming up, I hope you all have a great holiday, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thanks for wrapping that up, Joe. Yeah, if anyone has any, questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We can stay on for, 10, 20 more seconds or so. But yeah, our next webinar is in the first week of January, so we'll be sending out some details around that for signing up and whatnot too. Okay. So thanks everyone for your time, and I hope you enjoy the holidays coming up here.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Take care.